Welcome to Barley and Me. I'm your host, Ben Rice. We're here today for episode 85 in Eureka, California. Here today at Lost Coast Brewing with Briar Bush.
That would be me.
And our special guest today, a comedian out of the Savage Henry Independent Times, Nando Molina.
Hello.
And so, Briar, how's business here at Lost Coast?
Oh, business is fine. We've been in this new facility now for right about 4 years, and we're still catching our sea legs, so to speak, no pun intended there on the Lost Coast. What we're doing is slowly acclimating to this tap room and our gift store and hospitality area, but business is quite good. You know, the brewing industry is quite mature right now in the USA, so we're part of that maturing industry.
Yeah, and you're actually one of the really founders of the whole American industry as far as brewing is concerned.
We like to refer to that as being the old school. So those that kind of date back to 1990 or earlier. So, of course, a lot of these new breweries are coming on as we speak right now, 2018, et cetera. So those guys are the newbies. Us old folks, we've been around, so we've kind of seen, different elements of this industry for quite some time now.
Yeah. So what led you guys to opening a second location? I see there's like brewery tours and a gift shop, like you said.
Well, this would be our only location because we shut down our old brewing operation on West 3rd and Commercial Street back when we moved over to here. But we do also have our restaurant, but you can't, by California law, reference it as being a brewery because we don't brew on premise.
Okay, so
in that location. So this is our only brewing location. However, I guess you could say we have a tap room there on 4th Street as well as a tap room here at the brewery.
Have you always been brewing off-site from there as far as that's concerned?
Yes. No. The first 2 years of brewing operation back in 90, 91, and early part of 92 was actually conducted at what is now our restaurant. So it was Lost Coast Brewery and Cafe back then. Because we were brewing on premise there, and then we went off premise sometime in 02 to a location few blocks west of there. And of course, later came the law that stated if you were not brewing in the state of California on premise, you were not called a brewery. So that's why we have the term cafe.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for clarifying all that. I really appreciate it. And was that just, did you guys expand out because of just the simple fact that you were making so much beer, there was so much demand for it?
Well, yeah, back in early 90s, we kept up just fine, but the facility, the footprint of that facility was just not conducive of a very large brew house. So we had a 10-barrel system, which was really very taxing on the footprint because fermenters couldn't be any larger than a 30-barrel fermenter, and even then that took up an awful lot of girth. And so the next move was to find a roll-up door style warehouse facility, which Barbara found back in 02, and that put us down at the end of 3rd Street. So the restaurant sits between 3rd and 4th, and so it was only a convenient 10 blocks down the road.
Yeah. And have you been with Lost Coast the entire time?
17 years, so dating back to the start of 02, I came on board. We were quite tiny back then, as the entire craft brewing industry was quite tiny compared to where it is today.
Yeah, absolutely. How has that gone for you guys as far as that massive expansion in the last 8 or 9 years?
I would say that it has really developed, created a paradigm, I'm calling it, in the industry where right about 6 or 7 years ago, I really started feeling that definitely there is a lot of upside potential, but for new breweries to come on rather than existing breweries to have that opportunity for that upside. And as the consumers were looking for newer, better, nouveau beers for the first 3 or 6 months, then all of a sudden they're looking on for something else. But that's what I'm now kind of terming the New World Order. That's just fine as long as you're staying innovative and staying consistent with your qualities. Everything's fine. We're operating in it. We're evolving to it.
Yeah. And a lot of people don't know this anymore, but Barbara was like the first female owner-operator of a brewery.
Yes, that's right. Barbara Groom was one of the pioneers in the industry, as well as a female pioneer in the industry. So it is a very, very
to Barbara.
male. Yes, to Barbara. cheers to Barbara. Yeah, to the fact that, it takes a lot in this environment or in this industry, because you want to seemingly think that it's a very open mindset, but inside of that mindset is an awful lot of closed mindset. That no, it's not possible for a woman to do this, or no, it's not possible for a person other than somebody that's been in the industry from distribution or brewing to conduct themselves that way. I was kind of looked at myself 17 years ago coming on board, because I came from the salty snack world. And but once I told the quick story that what was I reaching for to wash down that salty snack, but a good beer, all of a sudden I was adopted into the industry.
Yeah, it's crazy. People still think when you think brewer, you're thinking of a white man with a beard. Is what you're always picturing. And
it's a prerequisite.
Yeah. And I'm glad that it's not.
Right.
The reality is no. Women brew, people of color brew. Like, it's a crazy world that we're living in. That's completely sane. I don't know why I use the word crazy.
And the real story is the fact that women were the brewers back 1,000 years ago or 500 years ago.
That makes sense, because the men were out hunting or being knights or whatever.
Playing poker.
Yeah. Or cowboy.
Yeah, so the women were basically doing the brewing, and for whatever mindset, they're like, oh no, that's fine up until the 20th century, but we're the brewers now because we're able to grow a beard and we look good in flat bill baseball caps.
Yeah, it's like, well, now there's money to be made. It's not just something you do at home for your family. It's something that's distributed.
So you're trying to say you look good in flat bill baseball caps?
You notice I don't have a beard. I basically, guys, girls, I don't have a beard.
Or a hat.
Or a flat bill hat.
Yeah, it's doing great.
Yeah.
So you said you were in the salty snacks business?
Correct.
Like, I'm just imagining pretzels. Is that wrong? Am I horribly...
Pretzels, potato chips, tortilla chips, basically anything that, snacks are either sweet or they're savory. So, that's all there really is out there in the world of snacks. And so I was on that salty side, and we did organic and specialty type snacks. And I was combined in that for like 19 plus years, somewhere around there. I lost track. It was too long.
So had you worked with Lost Coast through that business beforehand? Were you
I met Barbara back in 1998. Very awesome, strange story. I was in the process of going through a second marriage or into a second marriage, and my wife or wife-to-be was living in Ann Arbor, Michigan area, and she did events, and she was actually hosting an event, and people walking around with those trays of shrimp and things like that on there, and she introduced me to somebody that said, "Oh my God, you're from Eureka." I know somebody that lives in Eureka, and I'm thinking for sure they're thinking of Eureka, Nebraska or something like that. But no, it's Eureka, Humboldt County, and it's Barbara Groom, Lost Coast Brewery. So, yes, her and him worked together as in a pharmacy in Fortuna area. And he was then issuing me his card to say that he was alive and well, and for me to, be the conduit over to Barbara to let her know that. And, of course, several months later, finding it in my wallet, I went down to the brewery, dropped it off. She was not there, dropped it off with her business partner, Wendy Pound. Wendy passed it over to Barbara. I had also paper-clipped my business card with what I was doing at the time to that for just, I don't know, for whatever reason. And she hunted me down and came by and visited with me, and it was right then and there started talking an opportunity for me to come on board. Yeah, it's one of those stories that, you kind of cling to for a very long period of time because you knew that it was a threshold type of going through a threshold. Something is going to definitely happen out of all of this. No, it's not going to involve beard growing in flat-billed baseball caps, but it would involve beer, which I like beer. I like to homebrew. Before I ever met Barbara, I was always beer, never really whiskey or wine. So it was always something very that I felt passionate about. And I kind of felt like if you're not going to be feeling passionate about what it is that you're doing, maybe just don't do it at all.
Yeah.
I agree.
Are you a Eureka lifer?
Long story short, I'm actually Canadian by birth.
No.
Moved here very, very, very early age.
I'm Canadian.
Don't you know? Then grew up in Arcata, left down to the Bay Area, went to school, went to college and everything, and married, stayed down there for a while, and then decided to come back up here looking for the better life. And been up here steadily now since like 1982, I think it was.
That's awesome. Nando, what about you? You a Eureka lifer?
Oh, no, I moved up here for school in 2002, and I liked it. I got a couple jobs and just stayed in the area since.
Where were you from before that?
Los Angeles.
Okay, so you kind of did a reverse for him. Like
Yeah.
Canada, Los Angeles. He went down to the Bay. You came out of Los Angeles up to here.
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much the same life is what I'm hearing, just like slightly different. So do you have any experience with this brewery, Lost Coast?
Oh, yeah. You guys have given me many hangovers. This is actually my second time in this facility. I live close to Old Town, so I go to the restaurant a lot. Between your IPAs and downtown browns, I do like a good cocktail now. Now I'm older, just beer kind of sits heavy on my stomach now, so like go lighters now. So I'm old.
Awesome. Well, we've got you were mentioning IPA there. We've got our new Revenant IPA, which I was part of that team that was developing the flavor profiles and the aroma profiles and everything to do with it. Barbara's always got the vision for the art that just absolutely nobody else can even come close to that. I only know good art when it comes out and it beats me over the skull. Otherwise, I don't know what good art is. But
you guys have a unique look. Dwayne Flatmo.
Well, Dwayne Flatmo up until a few years ago, which we then rotated over to Sean Griggs, doing the work right now, such as Fog Cutter, Revenant, little work there on the Sharkinator as well. So any new label art coming out forward is not going to have Dwayne Flatmo's
sharp edges, I guess.
Or neo-cubits. Look that he's got.
Yeah, I know less of art than you do. Like, I didn't even know neo-cubism was a word. Like,
right, I was like, what do we call this?
Yeah, it's I don't know if it's a word
Cubism
or not,
makes total sense.
Neo-cubism, whatever it is, it's certainly his signature. And the guy does stuff other than that type of a look. But
for you guys, with your brand.
Yeah, with our brand, everything's got that look to it.
Like you said, you guys are the old school, so you got to keep up with the new times. So sometimes you got to just change up the look a little bit. Yeah,
evolving the art a little bit to stay with the new generation of what consumer interest is. Yeah, and of course having the art, the packaging has got to fulfill the interest of the consumer and what the ingredients are. Yeah, they have to coexist.
And like for a lot of people say, oh, there's label art, but yours is like legitimately art on a label. And that's the neat thing about Barbara. She loves art. I mean, loves it, knows it, reads it, breathes it, everything. And so what she's got is obviously a signature to who we are, what we are, and what the product is and what it stands for, and a cult following because of that. But yes, it's not just something that's just cheesy and just kind of thrown on to a label, which is then label art. No, ours is art that we make a label around it. Yeah. Yeah, and you got the lettering for your label, for your even the Lost Coast name is defined and different than anybody else.
That's because it's handmade fonts. These fonts are not trademarked by somebody that's on some internet site that, we have to pull it off of and cut and paste it or something like that. This is hand-drawn fonts. Everything from our logo to our actual labels, everyone is individually hand-drawn, and then whatever it is, techniques that they evolve it over to digitize it and put it onto that label. So it is quite complex, but it is recognizable as being a signature trait of the brewery.
Yeah. So I have a question about this Revenant IPA that you guys have out. Now, is there a prerequisite that you have to have fought a bear, or does it make you fight a bear when you drink it?
You're talking about the movie?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that was a little over my head, but I caught up with you on that one. Well, again, Barbara Groom. She came up with the idea of Revenant. She liked the play off of the. In the beginning, it was going to be a red IPA because that's what I was kind of thinking would be, the nice little twist to an IPA, and so she came up with the idea of Revenant. Red IPA, so it just rolled off the tongue there with the R's. This was as DiCaprio was coming out with the movie. It wasn't even out yet, but she knew it was coming out, and she said, "Oh, that would tie in so well." In the meantime, we kind of tripped over that ingredient grain profile for a little bit, trying to get the right balance with the hops and that malt and that red. And then it's just kind of one of those aha moments that I literally had while talking to a beer connoisseur that said, why not just make it a regular IPA and get the red out? And I'm like, okay, we'll call it Visine. And, Barbara was just like, do it. Just, let's get going on this thing. And that was almost a year and a half ago. And then we rolled it out and stuck with that name, Revenant. We just dropped that red portion. It's a phenomenal name. And the art, Sean Griggs out of Ferndale made that art. It's just phenomenal.
That's crazy. That's a long way to get to that beer. I remember the first red IPA I ever had. It was at a Pliny the Younger release thing in Davis, where they're giving out tickets like, oh, you get one pour Pliny the Younger. And I just showed up to that bar just because I was going to go there and drink. And I just happened to be there like right around the time they opened. I had no idea what was going on. They were handing out these tickets, and I'm like the fifth person in. And I'm like, yeah, can I get that red IPA? And it started to be like I was some kind of alien. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, no, I've had that beer. Like, I've had that beer a million times. I don't care. I had that yesterday somewhere else. Like, my plan to drink that was yesterday. Like, that's fine. And I get it, and it pours out like this muddy brown color. I was like,
that sounds delicious.
Yeah, I was like, and it didn't taste good. And I was like really upset about it. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to drink a red IPA ever again. And now I really
was it unfiltered? Was that why it was muddy?
This was like 5 or 6 years ago. I think it was just a really badly done beer. I don't remember who made it. Thankfully for them, I'm sure I've drank their beers again. But like, that was like, it took me off red IPAs for like 5 or 6 months. I'm like,
well, it's a category that's definitely not very sought after.
Yeah,
the red malts just don't mix well with the hops.
Right,
they just struggle. The hops struggle to come through. It's
a very difficult style.
Yeah, it's a difficult.
But I do enjoy them, which I like all the fits and starts in the IPA categories. Like everything, like I don't like hazy IPAs that much, but I love like a red IPA and like a black IPA. Like I will drink those. Like I love those a lot. Like I wanted them to be the future, like because once you start drinking the red IPAs and you see one that's not mud brown, one that looks like it would be a red IPA, you're like, okay, I'll try it again. It looks like it should be what it is. Like, I love those ones. I love all the failed non-starter IPA styles.
Failed IPAs.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I used to pretty much say this for years. You could pretty much drink a beer, urinate in a bottle, slap a label on it that said IPA, and there's somebody that's going to want it. Especially if the coloration is just right.
Yeah, exactly. Don't drink too much water with it, and you can resell it.
Yeah, try to keep that color in there. Yeah, it's just because there's just a certain... It's almost like there's beer, and then there's IPA. And
pretty much.
I've been in enough watering hole establishments to literally see people say, I don't drink craft beer. ... I drink IPAs. Like it's a separate category.
Yeah.
Like there's I understand a stout and a brown and a blonde and a pale and a red ale and an IPA, but they speak of it as being not even part of the same culture almost as regular craft beer is.
I think that's actually the case. Yeah. I think there's a craft beer drinker, there's the adjunct lager drinker, and then there's the IPA drinker.
Yeah, exactly.
And they can cross over.
Yeah.
But not really.
But not really, exactly. Yeah. It's almost like the underworld. I pretty
much stick to the IPAs, and unless I'm going cheap, then give me a PBR.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a buffer between both worlds, I think.
Yeah.
Which is so funny because they went so hard on don't drink bitter beers, like back in the 90s when IPA started to come forward. The beer industry was like, no, bitter beer is bad. We need to make it known that bitter beer is bad. And now, like, people that drink Budweiser also drink IPAs.
Yeah.
Despite that effort.
Well, the industry, the brewers have really come a long way. So has the hop growers have come a long ways to give us this nouveau style hop that has more flavor aroma compounds that are less bitter and more enticing and mix and blend better with the malts than they did back years ago, where it was just this malt in the beer, and then balanced out by rough, jagged edged hops. And that's what it was. So it was this yin and a yang, and trying to get that balance just right so that you could slug it down.
Yeah.
And today you could slug it down, but the balance is just way better.
Yeah, there's citrus and there's melon and there's dankness and there's all these things as opposed to these overpowering bitter.
Yeah.
And there's so much more you can do with it.
Yeah, mango and everything else.
Yeah.
In there. Exactly.
But as we sit here today, we're drinking classic Lost Coast beers. Nando, what you got?
I got a Downtown Brown.
And I got the 8-Ball Stout. Classics. I mean, these are things I drank when I got into beer. These are the beers that I went to.
Me too.
Like,
Downtown Brown, the Great White. Those
yeah. Yeah. I can't even imagine how many times I drank a Downtown Brown in my life.
That's what I was drinking when I first met Barbara at the brewery, and I was actually home brewing a brown ale, so I was really kind of embracing it because it's kind of a tough category, because if you don't get those malts just right, it's either too sweet, too syrupy, too cloying, just doesn't balance out right.
Oh, yeah.
But if you do get it right, it's got so much more depth and flavor profile. You can pick up different chocolate notes and coffee roasted notes and caramel and things like that. And toffee. And, it's a little bit better drinking than just, slugging down a lager or something.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what kind of always drew me to you guys, is you guys really knocked out those styles that are delicate. Like, one small change can ruin the batch and make it almost undrinkable. Browns and ambers are, like, nearly impossible to brew well.
Right.
I've had so many garbage ambers in my life because they're cloying, especially in an amber. That cloying sweetness that's just sticky and gross.
Right.
I've had millions of those and very few well-made ambers. And you guys just knock those things right out.
It's a balance of those malts. Again, a beer like that is balanced out with the darker roast grains rather than all hops, where an IPA is all about the hops, trying to balance out those malts that are still the sweetness compounds in the beer.
So I'm glad that we're here, because it's rare that you get to talk to a classic brewery nowadays. One that kind of influenced you as a drinker when you were coming up,
Good.
Back when my liver wasn't yet pickled.
So, Nando, we're actually here. I'm only up here, really, for the Savage Henry Comedy Festival, 7th annual. How's that treating you?
Pretty good. Like I said, I live in Eureka, so I'm a local comic. I've been on the Savage Henry Comedy Festival all 6 years. This is our 6th year. And just like to mention that Savage Henry's getting ready to open a comedy venue in Old Town on, I want to say, F and 4th or something. If you're a local, where the Red Fox Tavern used to be at. If you're not a local,
where the Red Fox Tavern used to be at.
And on my end, Hollywood came calling.
And it said, go to Eureka.
Yeah. A small independent film was getting filmed up here. Maria Badford, Craig Robinson, and they got it. Emil Hirsch was in it too, and I'm in the movie. It's coming out October 16th.
Oh.
So I'm it's a comedy because I'm the muscle in the movie. I got to punch Emil Hirsch in the balls twice.
Emil Hirsch?
Yes.
In the balls?
Yeah.
2 times.
2 times.
All right.
He I met him, hello, and he told me, if you punch me, we're done shooting for the day. I said, I seen Dogtown Z Boys. See you tomorrow. No, I didn't punch him, but But he made it up because Speed Racer was pretty cool if you were on acid. So that's what's been happening, and getting ready to close out the festival here and check out that new comedy venue when it opens up here in about a month, I think, or so.
And for those unfamiliar with Savage Henry Independent Times, it's a comedy magazine. It's available pretty much throughout California at this point.
Thank you. I know it goes up to Seattle and Colorado. I don't know how much further than Colorado, but I'm sure it's places.
Yeah. And I'm not going to spell it out for you, but you can kind of figure out what the Savage Henry Independent Times is.
Well, if you can't spell, I don't know how you managed to be listening to this podcast.
But yeah, this is a lot of fun. Just a bunch of comics getting drunk for 3 days and telling jokes to strangers in weird places. I'm doing a barbershop show after this. I'm going to get my hair cut and tell jokes at the same time.
That's coming up.
Yeah. I'm very appreciative of it, to have the chair to sit in because we played a wiffle ball game yesterday and I managed to tear my calf muscle.
In wiffle ball.
Wiffle ball.
Yeah.
In my defense,
This is a grown man.
And he's willing to discuss this in a podcast.
Yeah. Well,
I think I would try to keep it closeted.
It's about honesty with the listener. Here's what happens when you drink a lot of beer for many years. You get out of shape and fat and horrible, and then you try to exercise, and it dooms you. Also, that field was very uneven. Also, I'm a piece of shit. Piece of garbage is what I meant to say there. It was really funny because earlier in the day, I'd been thinking about my brother-in-law who snapped his Achilles tendon lightly jogging downstairs to go to work one day because he was 43 years old, and he was like 280, not really athletically fit anymore. And I was thinking about it earlier today, like at least I'm not like that guy. And I am 36, and I just tore my calf muscle trying to go to second base on a ground ball.
Wiffle ball, no less.
Yeah.
Don't forget the wiffle ball part.
I'm just going to have to remind you of that. That's all.
He was trying to make it sound like it was co-ed softball. Mm-hmm. I was going to second on a grounder.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you forgot to add wiffle ball.
Yeah, and for those that don't remember, that's a plastic ball with holes in it and a plastic bat.
Yeah, and I also found this out from a plastic bat. Did you know they own the copyright to the color yellow? It says it on there. Yellow is an official copyright of wiffle ball.
Wow.
On the bat. I'm like, what?
Wow.
Yeah, and so I tried to look up what was wrong with me because I was running and I thought somebody threw like a softball at my calf because it felt like something got thrown at me and there was a pop sound, which was always good. And then I was starting to Google what was wrong with me. It turns out it's just Google just said, you're not a man. And no man is anymore, is what it said. And you just got to deal with it and accept the fact that you're in no way masculine.
Yeah, that plays wiffle ball.
One time a year. That's really the if I played wiffle ball 24/7, I think I would have been fine.
Yeah.
But I don't.
If you played wiffle ball 24/7, I probably wouldn't be doing this podcast with you. I would skip out on it.
Yeah. It's like, well, in addition to podcasting, I'm also a professional wiffle baller. Does that do anything for you?
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, some hobbled. So thank you for moving this table for me. I could not assist. Yeah. It also let me skip out on drinking the Revenant, which I was actually pretty sad about. That was my plan because I had no shows yesterday. I was like, yeah, I'm just going to go bar hopping and drink some beers. And then I had to lie down in bed.
You could have literally gotten bar hopping.
I don't care for that.
Hey, you. Do you love craft beer? Do you love craft beer brewed and bottled here in Northern California? Well, if you do, we got a magazine for you. ABV Magazine is the only local print publication covering Northern California's amazing craft beer and spirits community. Each issue features behind-the-bottle conversations, reviews, booze-based destinations, and a comprehensive guide to breweries, tap rooms, bottle shops, and distilleries in Northern California. You can sign up for only $1 a month and have each issue delivered right to your front door. Check it out at abvmagazine.com. And from all of us here at ABV Magazine, cheers and thanks for supporting local craft beer. That's abvmagazine.com, alcohol by volume.
So Nando,
Ben.
why comedy? Why now? Why Eureka?
Why Eureka?
Why Nando?
That's what my mom called me.
Is it short for Mermando?
No, for Fernando.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Why comedy? Why now? Why Eureka?
I always enjoyed making wisecracks, and then the first time I did an open mic about 9 years ago, it went well and got hooked on it. Why now? It's because I kept on doing it ever since. And
Yeah. So your first set went well.
yep.
Okay. Now, when you were getting into it, did you have a plan of action going in, or just like, I'm going to get on stage tonight? Or did you like sit there for months watching, writing jokes? Did you have past experience like comedy writing? What did you do?
I heard Savage Henry was going to put on a comedy open mic like a week ahead of time. So I had about a week to just kind of put some thoughts together. And yeah, just came up with some dumb stuff to talk about, and it worked well. So yeah, just about a week's notice, I suppose.
Okay. Yeah. Was it always kind of a dream of yours that you just never pursued, or was it something that you're like, oh, that exists here? I'll do it.
Well, I grew up watching a lot of stand-up comedy and always enjoying it. So when I had the chance to do it, I figured I'll give it a shot. It always looked kind of fun to do. And so I guess since young teen, I had the itch to do it. Since
you were a young teen, you'd had the itch, and you just never did it.
Yeah.
What kept you from it? You were in L.A. I listened to you. You were in L.A. the whole time, where comedy is. And you're like, I'll wait till I get to Eureka to try this out.
Well, I grew up in L.A., but when I was 10, I moved away to Guatemala. Then I moved back to L.A. when I was 16. So I was going to school, and I had a part-time job. So then I moved to go to college. So there was very little time to try it out.
Okay. I like glaring at you like, these stories are not adding up. You could have done this anytime.
I know. I felt like shit. Is this Law and Order comedy?
Yeah. No, I just want to know so I can just be like, no, I did it on a dare. That's how I got into it.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
You could have just told the truth.
Yeah, no, I did. Just dare.
And did it work out the first set, or how did it go?
Oh, it was terrible. Oh, no, it was terrible. It was good enough that two people said, hey, that was really funny. We have this other open mic down the street you can go to. So I went.
So you just doubled down on the
I just doubled down, and the place that they took me to ended up being like 4 blocks from my house at the time. I'm like, is this every week? Like, it's every week. I'm like, great. Every week I'll come in here and do 5 new terrible minutes for 6 months. And then I found out there's other places you can go, and I started doing it. But
you do bad enough in a couple places, people take you around to other places
just to show how bad it is. Yeah. No. And then it turned out the people that had grabbed me, I started doing comedy more often and seeing more comics, and I'm like, oh, they weren't good. Like, I should never have listened to them. They themselves were not good at comedy.
No.
So when they told me I was good, I didn't know that they were bad, and they didn't have. In fact, the host of the open mic I went to every week, after I got good, told me he used to dread that I would show up.
How bad?
Because of how bad I was. Yeah.
I think every scene has a couple of those people. They're like, oh, they're here? Okay. Can I not go after him?
Yeah, it was real weird. But that guy also got my first paid gigs. So, because I got my first good set was like 5 months in. I'm like, oh, these are good. These work. I can go to other places and they work also. That's pretty fun.
You know how awful that would be if that was how beers got made? You made a beer. This is awful. All right. Would you like a 6-pack? I suppose.
Yeah. It's like, this didn't work out at all. I'll come back next week with 5 new beers.
Yeah.
Is that kind of how it works for you? Is it stumbling into it?
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
Just stumbling around till you figure it out.
Making wrong moves are the moves that people are looking for. What can I say? Zig instead of zag.
Yeah. And I always think that you learn more from failure than you do from success.
That's right. Failure is nothing more than a course in education
and humility.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's. I gave up brewing real early, though. I somehow stuck with comedy after months of being terrible at it, but 2 bad beers. I was like, you know what? I'll just drink it. 2 failed bands, 2 failed beers. Just like, nah, that's a thing I just enjoy. I don't do that. I don't craft that.
Yeah, that would be the problem when I was home brewing. Is I'd try to figure out what to do with 5 gallons of failure. I don't have that many enemies, and I'm certainly not going to make any new friends if I hand this stuff out.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, I didn't know what to do with it. Yeah.
What'd you come up with?
What I come up with? Well, according to some of my neighbors, new methods of creating a disease on them or something, but because they were just not like this beer at all that I was making. And, I think it's because you make it yourself, you're developing a tolerance to accept the fact that it's bad, but I will think that it's good type thing. But, I would know just really deep down inside it was really bad stuff. But it's you just can't dump it down the drain. It's just forbidden.
Yeah.
It's just not right. A lot of work went into it. Washing the bottles, sterilizing everything. Good God. I didn't care about the money loss. It was all that sweat down the drain that I was dumping. Yeah.
So did you have like a party like on a weekend, like, come on over, we're going to drink these beers that probably won't be good, but maybe they will be. Well, maybe to you they'll be good.
Actually, when I met this woman that eventually became my wife back in Detroit, they all knew that I was home brewing, something that they really didn't know. The only thing they knew to do is go to the store and buy a Canadian lager or something. And I would come out there, and I think I would bring 48 to 60 bottles with me, all wrapped up in 2 different pieces of luggage, and lug this thing almost across the continent, for God's sakes, and having people come over and everybody would ooh and ah about it. And for wedding gifts and all that kind of crap, I bet you I got 60, 70 different types of pieces of glassware. And I say I because, believe me, my wife didn't give a damn about anything.
Wanted nothing to do with it.
But I had every type of Pilsner glass and mug and anything that you can imagine that everyone was buying for me because they thought, I was a brewer,
Yeah.
And I would need
couldn't
to have
possibly have
60
these
pieces. I wouldn't. Yeah, the poor guy was probably drinking out of a mayonnaise jar before we gave him these wedding gifts.
Now, how many of those did you keep beyond 2 months?
They're all packed away and they're in an attic somewhere. Which one of these days I'm going to have to sort through all of that stuff.
Yeah, my girlfriend now slaps people that tell it's like, hey, as a parting gift, here's a glass. She's like, we need no more glasses. Get them away.
Yeah.
We're good on glasses.
Yeah.
I just had a friend move to Minnesota, a comedy friend who would always when she would tour, she would bring back beers from places she'd been to. Cheryl, the soccer mom, awesome. Look her up. She's great.
She's hilarious.
Yeah. So she's in Minnesota now, but before she left, she gave me all these fancy Pilsner glasses and a kitchen table, which was cool. But they're just taking up space in the closet now because we literally have nowhere to put them. And we took them and wait, we already turned down glasses. We've been doing that for a year. Why would we ever have accepted these? Right. Other than that, she didn't want to move them across the country.
I've got hundreds of different branded glassware from different breweries that I've visited or just purchased or people buy it for me as gifts. Like I said, hundreds, probably maybe 300 plus pieces of it. It drives my wife crazy because it's all over the house and it's packed up in boxes. Might even be 400 pieces. It's just a habit. You can't help it.
Yeah.
You go somewhere, it's like, I got to buy that glass.
Yeah.
And then, it's like, what do I do with it now?
Yeah.
It's breakable. I don't need any more glasses.
Yeah.
And you probably can't give it away because how often do you just give away glassware? They're like, oh, what is this? Let me guess. Glassware.
And now it's broken glassware.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't give away more than one.
Yeah, if friends come over, I'm telling them, would you like to have a glass with your bottle pour? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, and I mean, have the glass and take it home with you, please.
Every night at my house is pine night.
Please just come in, you leave with a parting gift.
Have a beer, keep the glass. That's how it happens at my house.
Yeah. And you get a clean glass every time you have another beer.
Yeah. So you mentioned bringing 40, 50, 60 bottles of beer across the country. And I know a common question for a lot of beer nerds is, how do you properly ship beer across the country? Do you have a method that you like?
Well, I mean, technically, you can't really. We don't ship to end users. I mean, there's so many laws governing even the transit of beer.
Right. Let me rephrase the question. Is there a way that you like to bring beer with you when you go traveling? Is there a way that you would do that?
I would use lots of bubble wrap. Lots of bubble wrap today. Like I'm saying, I can't even imagine in my mind how I did this in the day because this is before 9/11 and before all the different rules and regulations involving what you can take on a plane and, smuggling babies in the overhead area.
Fun X-ray to watch. Your 60 plus bottles going through the X-ray machine.
Yeah, right. And back in the day, they were just like, "Oh, that's so great. He's taking beer all the way back to Detroit." Yeah, sure. He's not thinking thinking that this is ball making material.
Right. You're like, handle that carefully. If it goes wrong, it will explode. And it's like, what?
Right. Right. Yeah, so it was different, but I would say it can be done, but be prepared. It's cost prohibitive, very cost prohibitive. Yeah, I mean, just shipping like 6 bottles alone, I can tell you, is probably $30.
Yeah, it's awful. I don't do it.
So it's just not worth it.
I hate it. I tried it twice. I'm like, I don't like this. But my method for going across country, cross-country flights, visiting family and friends, my method is you're already bringing these things with you. Sock, put it around the bottle, tie it off. Yep. Then roll it in one of your shirts. I've never had a broken bottle ever in my life. I've been doing this for 12 years. It's not a problem.
Yep, I wish.
Everybody's like, no, you got to pay for bubble wrap. It's like $19 for 2 feet. Yeah. Like, why? You're already bringing these things with you, and they work fine.
Yeah, but you can't pop your socks after though.
Yeah, that's true. There's a little bit of an enjoyment factor. It's kind of lost. Yeah. That's a good point.
Yep. T-shirts and socks. That's what I wrapped all of that stuff in. Absolutely. Yep.
Great. So we figured out how to do that properly. Yeah.
And thank God for cans.
Oh, yeah.
Today. Saves much less weight and takes up less space. And, of course, it's non-breakable. I have punctured a can before.
Yes. That's all you got to worry about is puncture wounds.
In fact, I was on an ice chest on a boat fishing a month or so ago, and I'm like, why do I smell tangerine wheat? And I'm like, oh my God, somebody reached in there too fast and they punctured one of the aluminum cans of one of the beers that we had on the ice chest. So that thing leaked all over the place, and it was pretty interesting.
So you were fishing? Nando, you fish?
Nope.
Well, then you're out of this conversation.
Water raft, but I don't fish.
Oh, that's bold.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so
I enjoy it.
So you just you enjoy fishing? Big fishing?
Really, not for a lot of years. I actually had a couple of guests come in town from the Atlantic coast, and they were wholesalers and big managers at big wholesale facility, and so I thought I would take them out on an ocean excursion of salmon fishing, only to have that particular date not be a good day, and our captain said, this isn't good. We'll go out. We'll cruise up and down the coast there and look for some lingcod and rock cod and some flounders and halibut and stuff like that. So that's what we ended up fishing for. We caught a ton of it, which was more fun than fishing all day and maybe getting 1 or 2 salmon. So it was a great day.
Yeah. So where is this area that you were fishing?
Humble Bay.
Okay.
So there's a couple of different marinas on the bay, and we went out of the Woodley Island Marina, and we went around the bay. The bay's much bigger than it looks to be, especially when you're in it and you're in a small boat. And so there's a lot of different various fishing areas inside the bay, and then right at the cusp of the mouth of the bay, and then going outside of the mouth of the bay, different types of fish varieties out there as well.
And were you rod fishing, or were you?
Rod. Rod.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool.
Well, I don't do very well just diving overboard and trying to catch them with my hands. It never works well.
All right, and then what was the weather conditions that were so terrible?
We couldn't see our hand in front of our face. It had to be one of the foggiest days of the entire calendar year. I mean, it was pea soup. Even walking out on the dock, you had to watch yourself, because I'm telling you, 15, 20 feet of visibility. There's just nothing out there. And so he just said he could not go out over the bar, out the mouth, on that day with those conditions. Plus, he said they're just not catching anything. It's just been really bad the last 2 days. So he really advised that the smarter thing to do to, maximize what we're here to do anyhow, which is catch some fish. Let's try this approach instead. So I was happy with it.
Okay. Because this is a fun story. When I got out of high school, I was a commercial fisherman up in the Aleutian Islands. And I was like, oh, what's this weather condition? If it's raining a lot, they puddle up. They pool up and just hang out for the night. So you can just go catch hundreds and hundreds of fish in the worst conditions, which happened to be my birthday. And so but it was so bad. It was like terrible. Like the waves were like 30-foot waves coming out. And, my mom was very confident that I could do this because my captain was my uncle.
Okay.
So it's like, it's fine. You can go out and do that. It's good money. It's a good work experience. I trust your uncle. I get there, and like day one, I'm just hearing stories that my uncle's the crazy one in the fleet. Like he'd been stranded in a tree for 7 days.
In a tree?
In a tree. A wave carried his boat onto land and threw him onto a tree where his boat landed, like in a bunch of trees, upside down. All this fish that he caught.
Yeah, we're cutting you off. No more beer.
Hold on.
Because he just said somebody was out in the boat, got stuck on the tree.
Yeah. That's why I'm cutting him off.
His boat was upside down. All the fish that he'd caught in his hold fell to the ground. So there were bears eating all this fish that he'd caught.
Wow, it's getting better all the time.
So he had to stay. And that's the person.
No more scotch.
She's like, I trust him. I trust you with him. I'm like, that's not a good idea.
No.
It's really bad. So it turns out he was an insane person.
Maybe like in a car or in a plane. Definitely not in a boat.
Yeah. So this is a fleet with like 40 independent contractor fishermen, right? So there's 40 boats out there that could be out there on this particular night, which again is the night before my birthday, and we're fishing, 10 p.m. So it's right before. We're the only one in the water from that fleet at all, and we're 100 miles from the nearest place to go dock up for the fleet, and 30-foot waves, and he was very kind. He decided to lay the nets out while I was taking a nap. He's got it all prepped for me. And then he comes waking me up. He's like, hey, it's time to pick the fish. And it's like 12:30 in the morning, again on my birthday. Now it's officially my birthday. I'm like, so I get suited up. I get my little suit in case I fall in the water, and I can drown slower or something, or not freeze so fast. I'm not sure how it works. And I grab a little pick to get him out of the net. And as soon as I step out onto the actual area where you pull the fish in, we get hit by a massive wave, and I fall overboard and catch the beam with my left hand to keep myself in the boat just barely. Wow. And then we just kept getting pummeled by these massive waves. It breaks our reel, and the line is 3/4 of a mile long. It's laid down. It expands out to like 50 feet to pick up fish in little 3-inch spots. And so that reel that we're using to pull it in, electronically or mechanically, breaks. We're pulling in by hand thousands of pounds of fish and trying to get a few out. But as the waves come, it pulls the netting back out.
That's called long line, isn't it? Yeah, long line.
It's not the same line as long line. Yeah, so it's long line fishing, correct. Mm-hmm. And so it's just pulling these fish back out, and we're just pulling it in, trying to get fish off of it. But we're only getting like 2 or 3 fish, then the whole thing's going back out in the ocean over and over again. And finally we're like, this is foolish. Let's stop picking the fish. We'll pull it all in. And we'll bring it into the 100 miles away, which you can only travel like 20 miles an hour on these boats. So we pull it all in, we pile in 3/4 of a mile of line of fish, packed with fish. Because again, fish just pile up when it rains. They stop swimming. They just kind of hang out so they'll just blow over. But we have a fish finder that tells us where the fish are. We stop right there.
Right.
And the rainstorm just doesn't relent. So we don't ever go back out there and pick the fish out while they're alive. And you can't sell dead fish. You have to put them in a hold that keeps them alive. And so we ended up just throwing away like 4,000 pounds of fish.
Sad.
And we had to buy a whole new reel, a whole new whatever the other thing that brings the stuff into it, and something blew in the engine compartment. So I was like, can we just go into land for my birthday? We could skip this whole fishing thing for one night. And he's like, no, we're going to clean up. So instead of going in and just hanging out for my birthday, we lost legit like $20,000.
Wow.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, and then I got to go in for my birthday, where it turned out they had my favorite dish for dinner, which was lasagna. So it's like perfect. It's like they knew it was my birthday. All right, so that's a fun story about fishing.
There's bears and boat stuck on a tree.
Yeah, me almost dying on my birthday. Yeah, there's a lot.
They had alcohol?
No alcohol. There was no alcohol. I was only like 18 or 19. I think it was 19 officially at the time it happened.
Yeah, he's a wise guy. Yeah, take him for his birthday.
Yeah. And that's a short form of that story.
How long were you a commercial fisherman for?
It was 4 months. I never went back to it.
Short-lived career.
Yeah, I did get offered a job on a boat for like crab fishing and stuff like that. And the captain of that ended up being on Deadliest Catch a few years later. Not as one of the main guys, just like a guy that popped in for like an episode. Yeah, that guy's a good worker. He worked with the craziest guy. Every day. We never went into port. We were always like showering. And like when I got there, the refrigerator had just broken. And the shower had just broken. And the toilet had just broken. And none of them got fixed. So you'd have to like pump it with water from the ocean back into itself. And you had to like heat water on a stove and pour it over yourself like out of a bread pan. Like it was nuts. It was an awful experience, and there's a reason I didn't go back.
Tell me again why you didn't want to go back?
Right. Yeah. It was really just the pay wasn't as good as you think it would be. Like, I did the math, I'm like, oh, this was like half of minimum wage that I made. I could have made more money doing literally anything. I don't get the stories.
So some of those jobs are.
Yeah. Like, I did it so, like, I could pay for college, and then I had to borrow money from my mom anyway. I'm like, I'm very sorry. I tried not to do this. I'm like, hey, taxes. It turns out also I have to pay an incredible amount of taxes because I'm an independent contractor. And I did not plan for that as a college student to have $4,000 lying around. Yeah, it was a waste. It was a terror. I couldn't pay back my plane ticket. Like, it was awful. It was an awful experience. All right, so that was fun. You guys enjoy those stories? You guys?
Yeah, nice stories.
Yeah. You guys want to try to find a way to get out of that and make this podcast happy? As we close it out and get on with our days?
Oh, definitely.
What do you got?
Well, my mom's not that much of a drunk, okay? But a couple years ago, we went to visit my mom and my wife, and we woke up, we had a nice dinner, and, well, not we woke up, had a nice day, and had dinner. So me and my wife, we went out to a couple of comedy shows to go watch them, and we got back home late, and we're going to sleep on an air mattress, but the pub was going to make too much noise, so we're like, let's just you know, you sleep on the couch, I'll sleep on the floor, it'll be one night, I don't want to wake up my mom. So the next morning we're having breakfast, and I was like, hey, told my mom, sorry we got in so late, hope we didn't wake you up, and she's like, how could you? We were at the club.
All right, guys, I think it's time to go. We all have other places to be.
Yes.
Other shows to do. I have to go sit in a chair and tell jokes while I get my hair cut. So, Nando, where can people find you online?
Facebook and Twitter. Nando Molina on Facebook, and Nando Molina 5150 on Twitter.
All right. And then Briar Bush, thank you so much for popping on the Barley Me podcast. I appreciate it. Yep. And where can people find Lost Coast? What's going on with you guys?
LostCoast.com. You can find out everything about our tap room, our restaurant, our beers, events that we're hosting, everything right there at LostCoast.com.
Do you guys have any events coming up in the next few weeks?
Well, we do pint nights for nonprofit about every Thursday and Friday down here at the tap room. So nice. There's always a nonprofit event there. And otherwise, we've also got tours that go on here Wednesday through Sunday during our normal business operational hours at the tap room. And certainly a nice review of what a brewery looks like and the functions of a brewery, from packaging to kegging to canning and bottling and everything else. So a nice fun experience. 1600 Sunset Broadway, Eureka.
Nice. All right, guys, this has been episode 86 of Barley and Me. I'm your host, Ben Rice. You can find Barley and Me at Barley and Me Pod across social media. I want to thank you guys very much. Nando Molina.
Thank you.
And also Briar Bush from Lost Coast Brewing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening. Get home safe.